Buddha. I put my whole faith to the Dharma. I put my whole faith to the Sangha. Buddham saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. Good evening. I have brought one apple. We call it apple, but I don't know it is really apple or not. Because apple is only a name. The name and this entity itself are not always the same. Because I bring it to some other countries, they call it with a different name. So I think there are many different names of this apple. So apple is only a name. But that is the name of apple. That is a name of the group, not the individual apple. Therefore, this apple has no name. Hi, King, how are you? Oh. So, everything is like this apple, I suppose. Flower is also, man is also, house is also. You know that we have many different races in this world. All are men. But some are very young, some are very old. Some are white man, yellow man, or black man. And we have many kind of persons. But all we call they are men. That is, of course, name. Name is used to be a name of the group. Houses is so. I'm looking at the house, the very old style and very fancy house. But it's very beautiful. Another house is also. The other one too. We have very many kind of houses, but there is no same house in the whole universe. Just like that, in this world there is no same thing too. Everything is only alone itself. This apple is quite different from other apples. So this is only one apple in the whole universe. If I call it apple, all other apple cannot be apple. It's very fun. But the human, that do not much care of difference. That this apple and the other apples. They have a concept of apple in their mind. That concept is, one or many. They do not care much about the difference, one, and many, between one concept and the concept of many. That is human mind. If we see, look at it, something very keenly, very carefully, each apple has a different color, different shape, sometimes a different taste, and from different trees. So there is no same apple or same thing in the whole universe. Therefore, we cannot, call it with the same name. Everything has no name. The man put their own name, own idea of name, on the certain one. This is apple, that is apple, that is apple. So that is human judgment. Apple doesn't care, one or many. Everything, that's understanding itself belongs to human mind. Apple doesn't care. It is understood by the man, or how man call it, with what name man call it, apple or some orange. It doesn't care. Because name doesn't belong to the things. And the human concept belongs to human side, but not to the thing side, individual or objective thing, like that. So I like to receive your question first and discuss about it once more. From next month, I bring a special schedule and discuss and explain first, then discuss after explanation. Do you have any topic tonight? Any sort of topic or subject? Will you give me something? How about the Karen? Yes. Do you have it? Okay, will you read it?
It says here, practice. It is very hard not to have a practice. Moment to moment is very hard.
To practice?
It's hard not to have a practice.
Oh, not to have the practice. Is it very hard, difficult to stay without practice? Oh, what is practice you mean? That practice is all human conduct, behaviors are called practice. So we have, the meditation, practice of meditation. We have the practice of Prajnaparamita. We have a practice of how to say, compassion or true love, selfless love, all are practice. Even sleep and eating, resting, talking, and joking, all are practice. Very perfect, very pure practice. There is no difference between practice and practice. Yeah. Yes,
He
please.
said that he finds that without some practice,
Yeah.
I mean a formal practice, he slides back into something that seems lower.
Yeah, I think he thinks there is some difference between practice. Some are very pure practice, another is impure practice. Some conduct are very good conduct, the other is very bad conduct. Like that?
Mundane.
Yes, I think so.
Mundane, everyday.
Yes, mundane conduct, human conduct are very selfish and realistic and dualistic. That is true. But supramundane practice are very pure, like practice of bodhisattva, like 6 paramita. That is very pure conduct, the selfless conduct. And how to say, no discriminating conduct, non-discriminating conduct, selfless conduct, and how to say that no partial. Partial means kind of selfish conduct. But all those conduct are called impure conduct. Impure. What is a pure conduct? That is selfless conduct and purposeless conduct. Purposeless conduct. And how to say that when we do something, that we usually, mundane conduct have 3 barriers or defilement. One is self, idea of self. I'm doing good conduct. I always the doer, the subject of the doer. That is very defined. And also, I'm doing good because some other people need it, like it. So I'm helping others like that. That is another defilement, defiled conduct. And also, I am doing this conduct, these actions, because this is good conduct. This is good action, good deed. Therefore, I do it. And that is another defiled idea. So when we do something, we practice something, we are all, how to say, abandoned or eradicated this kind of selfish idea. I, others, or good or evil. That is not so important. We have to do anything without self spontaneously. That is pure conduct, pure how to say, the practice. So there is no difference between any conduct, good or evil, that is only human judgment or conditional evaluation. It's okay? Okay, do you have any other question?
But I think I can see what it means. It's easier to remember that with in a formal practice. Sometimes you forget that when you're caught up in the world. But I agree, it is the time to practice.
Yeah. Yes, that is, we have, the habitual thinking or habitual disposition, tendency. That's why, that we have, we have some idea when we do something. We have an idea what conduct is this? Is it good or valuable or that's good for others? That is own judgment. We don't need this kind of judgment. That's all human judgment are selfish judgment. So the make our mind empty or pure, then do anything. Anything are the same.
She asks, why do so many other people stress practice as a means to enlightenment? Is it just to get the foundation for understanding?
Yeah, but the enlightenment itself is unknowable thing, everybody is enlightened from the beginning, all the time. They don't need to realize or to, aware of it.
Well, why do so many other schools say you have to do this, this, and this, this, and this, and then eventually enlightenment?
Yeah, because it is the steps. Yeah, human mind needs some concrete step, foundation. Yeah, therefore, that instructor, lead from these steps to little higher steps. Then this is better than that. And this is better than this, go up one step more, up, then up, upper. This is a gradual enlightenment, we call. But some people can, jump up to the highest stages. That is instantaneous enlightenment. Yes. So there is no difference between the gradual and the instantaneous. But that is only conditional. Everybody jump on, to the highest stages, in 1 second. Because there is no steps from the beginning. Only human make steps, So, the Buddha and the human beings are no difference, no difference from the beginning. But if Buddha said like that, so people was so confused. That's why Buddha said, I had so many practice in my past life. And I accumulated many good virtue in my past life. Then I became the Buddha. You are, still in, that rhythm of birth and death. You have many ignorance and passions and attachment and many barriers, defilement. So you need to study step by step and practice, good conduct step by step. Then you will reach to the highest destination. That is good, devices. Yeah, people need it. Yeah. I think he knows, Everybody, knows, he knows, I knows, I know, everybody know that. So that is their practice. Yeah. Wisdom is also, compassion is also. And all that Buddhism are like devices, method, or tactful means. So, this person needs this kind of devices, but that person needs different devices. They need a different. Each person has a need some own suitable devices. Otherwise, never understand, never being understood, and not so effective. That's why Buddha knew the all human disposition by individually. So he made a good medicine for to the each individuals, each sick man. So in Buddhism, someone said there are 84,000 different teachings. But that is one teaching.
Is it only 84,000?
Maybe 100 times of 84,000. It is countless. One is many, many is one. There is no difference. Some people understand many is so big, so many, so countless, so great, numbers. But it is not so. Everything. This is only one hand, 5 fingers. Name is different, but the how say that the how say that the contents or it's whole things, wholeness is one. When 5 fingers, this is one finger. 5, 1 are no different. Yeah. Now that's most of people, human mind is a very individualistic idea. So people, I exist by myself alone. But that is very, very unimproved idea. Very primitive idea, I think. Ancient people, I don't care. I might thought so, might think so, but today is the age of new civilized world. So we must be grown up, more our mind must be advanced. So our thinking must be improved, more improved. There is no, individual can exist by itself. No. Grown people, educated people knows that. All scientists know that. Ask the scientist. Something exists by itself? No. Most of scientists say no. Universe consists of many parts. Even one atom consists of small things. Proton, neutron, electron, such as, I think, many things. Okay, any other question, please? Okay, next problem. Okay, this is something most of people think, because it has a taste, it has a color, it has matter, it has some activities, it has some value, it has beauty, it has some gravitation, it has some cost, and eatable. No, it has many, that has say characteristics or usage or substances. But unfortunately, this apple has no substance, no characteristics, no appearances, no matter, or no color, no taste. I explained many times like this. Color is only a human sensation. Human feel. This is a red, dark red. That is human, sensation or feeling. It doesn't care. This skin has no color. When we bring it to the darkness, it has no color. Right? Only darkness. When we bring it a very bright yellow light, so it looks to be a yellowish, and also greenish. It changes many colors, depend on the condition. Color is conditional, and also human, sensation. Color belongs to the human side. If man is who has he has a blind. He is a blind and a color blind. Color blind. He cannot see the correct color. No correct color. It is high. Come on. Maybe he feels different from others. So the color is individual problem. Your feeling of color and my feeling of color are quite different, because I cannot feel your color. You cannot feel my color. There is only one mind can feel color and taste. Color and since human mind is only one in the whole universe. That is only your mind. It's very funny. All other is a picture of the picture like in the wall. No, we have no human picture in this wall, but sometimes we see many pictures, in the wall. When you see the many album, you see many pictures of your friends or families, but they are just a picture, not a family person, not friends. But most of the people think, oh, this is my friend Tom, this is a real person. But it is not so. Human mind is so how to say, deceived. How to say that so the easy to be deceived. So, that because human judgment is a very that's absurd. Human judgment itself is absurdity. Yes.
You wrote that human mind
Human mind what?
wants to be deceived.
Want to be deceived. Do you? Are you? You like to deceive, huh? In what case?
It is easier.
Easier. Yeah, many people think so, of course, sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said maybe
I think it's more that it dislikes discipline.
Discipline, yeah.
doesn't like discipline.
Yeah, discipline is, that's necessary, of course, but sometimes discipline is very bad. It bound the people, So,
But doesn't it take discipline to stop yourself thinking in concepts all the time, to make yourself remember, when you know what I mean, isn't it discipline to break the old habits, the ways of
yes, sometimes, yes.
making concepts about everything you do and thinking in those terms? It takes discipline to see things more clearly, doesn't it?
Yes, discipline is sometimes is like a skill, that when we get the skill, we need very hard discipline, practice. So when after getting skill, okay, that we don't need any discipline or hardship, just like playing piano. When we learn to playing piano, and at that time we get up early and practice very, very hard, very hard. Then after many years, get the skill. Then now we can play without thinking like that. So discipline is only process. In the process, we need a discipline. Any kind of conduct, we need a discipline for the beginner. But it's when we have how say we have realization, or we can realize it, or we can experience it. with our mind or with our body. So we don't need any discipline or any practice. Practice and discipline are the same thing, Okay, some other question, please. Okay, this apple, and I think this flower is good. This flower is always changing. It doesn't stay, that even very short moment. When you came in, 10 minutes, 15 minutes ago, it was still young. But now it is getting old. But most of people do not know. It is changed. It was changed. Human mind or human sense are very, very, dull, not so, sensitive. Therefore, you cannot find out the difference, It changed. But, everything is changing because, nothing can exist, steady or permanently. Everything is changing so rapidly. Your life is changing. Your body is changing. Your mind is changing. Your hair is changing. Everything is changing. And in the Buddha's time, there were three persons who hated to die. So one person went into the mountain and stay very quietly in the in the forest he wanted to prevent from dying. Another one went to the sea, on the ocean. I don't know, is on the boat or by the boat. Then, always, floating on the ocean. The third one, he dug the ground deeply, So he stayed, quietly in the hole, ground. But all of them died. That's equally to other person. No one can, escape from death or from changes. Yes, sir.
Well, you say that everything's constantly changing, but isn't that similar to someone saying that apple has color? Aren't they both appearances? Isn't change an appearance?
Yeah, that color itself color itself is unexplicable or unconceivable. I don't know what color, where is it? It is only a ray, the waves of ray. Or sometimes some scientists explain it. It is a very small atom of the color.
It has to do with the wave.
Yeah, that is a way of understanding. It is human understanding.
And isn't change
similar?
similar?
Similar, yes, I think so.
Well,
I think
in other words,
so.
when you say that everything is constantly changing, isn't that again your concept?
Yeah, that's true. Changing itself is a human concept, and the constant, or permanency, that is a human concept too. So, no one knows what is change itself, what is permanency itself. Now, people just imagine permanency is like this, always, same. But there is no thing which is permanent in the whole universe. You know? And there is no things which is changing. It is very funny. And time, people do not understand what the time is. No? If there is no time, there is no change. No? What is time? Time is a moving or running? I don't know. Time is staying or static, stillness. I don't know. No one knows what the time is. We have 100 of different theory of time. Newton's time or Einstein's time. We have many different theories about the time, but their theory are not correct, in my opinion. In my opinion. Don't blame me. Okay, I don't know your opinion. Okay. So, in my opinion, it is because we don't know. Then there are things of real existence of the time. Time is existence or not. Time is condition or not. Time is relationship, relative existence or not. Now, we have different, opinions or understandings or explanations, many. But all are fixed, idea. Therefore, time is a big question mark. No one, can obtain it, understand it, explain it, and get it. Okay. Some people, that in Buddhism we have two kind of times mainly. One is a changing time. Past, present, future. We have 3 periods of the time. In time. That is a concept, of course. The other concept of time is eternal time. It is always stay still. Like, every moment is now. Now, tomorrow will never come. Yesterday is always following me. So, the now never changes. Now. On the contrary, everything is changing with time. Things change by itself. But that is, that's a theory. So, and how do you think that the time, we call kala, that's a changing time, evolving time, running time. That is called kala in Sanskrit. And samaya is different. Another type of time is always now, permanent time. Or constant time. No. But both are just human concept. It is not time. Time is always beyond the human understanding, human grasping, human explanation. It is very interesting, it's old Abhidharma scholar in India. Abhidharma, the Buddhism is, in the certain period of Buddhism. Now, after the Buddha's decease, about 100 years, it was original Buddhism, we call it. And after 100 to the second century AD, until that, about 500 years, we call Abhidharma Buddhism or Theravada Buddhism. Still, those that lineage exist in Ceylon, Burma, Thailand. Those are Hinayanan countries we call. Each Hinayanan scholars spread into many smaller schools in India. At first, they spread it into two parts. That's one is senior group. That's called Theravada. The other is Mahasangika. Mahasangika is a little bit advanced. I say advanced. We can say advanced and more free, that's little free, freely, free thinking. That progressive, the schools. Those progressive schools spread into 8 small schools. And the bigger Theravadan school, this is senior school, we say. This one spread into 11 or 12. Altogether 20 or 22 little school, smaller schools. In that schools, it's Theravada or Theravadin, we say. That school is powerful, so it remained until now in Ceylon, Burma, Thailand, so on. We have another theories, stories. There were two kinds of Theravada, Northern Theravada and Southern Theravada. Northern Theravada is, all ceased, no more today. We have only books they wrote. On the Southern Theravada, we call it the Theravadin or Theravada school. That is Buddhism in Ceylon, Burma, Thailand, so on. Then, the Mahayana Buddhism started by the Nagarjuna, beginning of 2nd century. And then after, 100 years later, it's Asanga, Vasubandhu, those scholars established Yogacara school. Then those, Nagarjuna's Madhyamika school and Asangas and Vasubandhu's Yogacara lineage came to China. Then become a Chinese Buddhism and spread it into many. And also those schools, 13 different schools came to Japan and formed Japanese Buddhism. It came to also Korea, Korean Buddhism. That is very brief history of the Buddhism. Each Buddhism, insisting, my teaching is the best. All other is devices. But it is okay. That is human mind. There is no right or no wrong. If I insist, I'm right always, that is very worse, very bad. So bad and the good and the evil are the same thing, just front and the back. It is one thing. People divide, discriminate it. This is the back, this is the front. That is a human judgment. Buddha never judged. No. Everything is Buddhism. So, there is no Buddhism. Buddhism is emptiness, tranquility, not nirvanic. It is tranquility. Everything is tranquil. That is Buddhism. If we argue, about Buddhism, it is not Buddhism anymore. That the Buddha said. So discussion is okay. It is not argument. Yeah. So a question and answer is okay. You ask me, please. Any question?
We're all enlightened from the start.
Pardon me? Yes, sir.
You said we're all enlightened from the beginning.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Why do our minds become deceived if we're enlightened?
Why you say?
Why is there deceit of the mind?
Oh, disease.
No, deceit.
Huh? Disease. Not.
Deceived.
Why is the mind?
Oh, deceived. I see. This, that's. I think that nobody has our own mind. How? That your mind is deceived by anything. If you have permanent mind, maybe some other, some temptation or some other disturbance and deceive your mind. But the mind is changing all the time. Doesn't stay in one moment, even small time. So you have no mind. And there is no you. You, self is a big concept. So I have no self in my, mind, in my body. Everything is piled. Everything is aggregate. Everything is aggregate. Everything is a skandha in Sanskrit. Skandha means aggregate, piled. Therefore, that this flower is piled. That when we take, one flower and put one one petal from it. Is it flower? No. Then next one. Is it flower? No. Is it flower? No. And no more petals anymore. Where's the flower? It's gone. From the beginning, there was no flower. Flower is only pile. So we call it temporary flower. Name is a very temporary name, conditional name. So there is no flower there anywhere. But when we see it, oh, these types of things, it is changing so rapidly. But in this moment, I call it a flower. That is a flower. So who call it? I. Where is the I? that is another pile. Everything is a pile. No essence, no entity, no reality anywhere. That is very basic, theory or doctrine. I don't know which is right, or teaching of the Buddhism. Buddha used this kind of doctrine or theories or devices and educated the human people. When people have a strong fixed standpoint, Buddha always removed him from this place to the other, flexible place. If you have a concrete standpoint, ask to Buddha, remove you. He can do that. So, Buddhism is like this. It's all Buddhist teaching are like a medicine, for the sick man.
Yes, another question. He says, why do Mahayana call the southern schools Hinayana? I'm sure that the Theravadins don't consider their viewpoint as the lesser vehicle. He thinks it seems presumptuous if it's all Buddhism.
Yes, the Mahayana, people always, call Theravada Buddhism as Hinayana. Hina is small. Yana is a vehicle, like a boat or a cart.
Does
So,
it mean lesser as not so good or just lesser?
yeah, that name is not good, of course. Yeah. So Theravada Buddhism is, we should call them as Theravada Buddhism, not Hinayana, no.
What is Ekayana?
Ekayana is there is no Hina, no small, no big. Every body, all human beings, not only human beings, all other beings also, can get on the one vehicle, one teaching, one truth. That is Buddhism. So we call it Ekayana. Eka is one. Yeah, not big, not small. No. Eka is also no vehicle. So if that the Buddhism, when people need to get on, Buddha's vehicle, what should we do? All other people do not know the name of Buddha, do not hear any teaching of Buddha. They don't believe, they don't understand. They are not Buddhist. Those are always, out of derivation, how say, it's, out of, profit of the Buddhism. That is unfair. That was, that was not Buddha's, purpose. Buddha's enlightenment is, uh, that Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. I said many times. Anuttara is the supreme, highest, or complete, perfect, very highest. And next, the term of Samyak is very meaningful. It is equal enlightenment. Not only Buddha can be enlightened, could be enlightened without all other beings. If Buddha alone himself got enlightened by himself, it was not equal enlightenment. That is only personal, selfish enlightenment. Buddha's enlightenment is universal enlightenment, eternal enlightenment. Therefore, Buddha himself alone could not be enlightened. His enlightenment is everybody's enlightenment, same enlightenment, one enlightenment. That's why I am a Buddhist. Because he said, you are enlightened with me. He is enlightened with me. You are enlightened with me. Otherwise, I'm waiting until you are enlightened. I never be enlightened. I never enter the nirvana by myself alone. That is Buddhism. That's why I like Buddhism. Buddha was not, selfish person. Yeah. Okay, any other question, please? So, I continue my idea. Okay, this flower is not permanent, impermanent. Not only this flower, everything in the world are impermanent. Impermanent is in Sanskrit anicca, anicca. Is not. Nicca is eternal. So, anicca, not permanent. So, that sabe samkhara anicca, that is everything, all existences is all existence is impermanent. That's very meaningful. We heard 100 times this word, but all that the word is just went over my head. It never came to my eardrum. So we have no think of it so carefully. But this is very important. In the later, Mahayana schools, we have many sutras explained like this impermanency. But that impermanency and that all Dharma has no self-existence or self itself, not self, no self. That is called anatta. Anatta. That is a Sanskrit term. anatta. An Atman, Atman is a Hindu idea. It was a universal self. Each person has a universal self, eternal self. That is a real, permanent, self. Very good theory, but little, fixed idea. In Buddhism, there is no such fixed idea. Everything is beyond. That's how to say, beyond fixed idea. In another word, everything is conditional existence. Nothing can exist by itself, permanently. Flower is not permanent. Mountain is not permanent. Suns, moon, stars, universe is not permanent. Nothing is permanent. Because, as you know, permanency is only a human concept. People cannot know, what is permanence. That is very foolish. People like a permanence, That is a human desire. But everything is not permanent, beyond the permanency or momentality, momentary. So we must get out all kind of fixed point of view, fixed standpoint. Otherwise, people always make some, the strong assertion. Then people have a strong assertion standpoint. They have a fighting argument all the time. They fighting, make a war. That is the trouble of this human world. Why we fight? We have a war. Because each of them have a strong selfish assertion standpoint. Capitalism is better. Communism is better. So that is, that's their misjudgment. In my opinions, any kind of fixed idea, fixed theory are wrong. That is illusion. Selfless love, selfless wisdom, selfless compassion is better. Yes, please.
Well, he wrote something else, but it was long and I didn't know if it would be clear. It
Okay.
seemed to be that he was saying that it's difficult for his mind to grasp the idea of there being nothing permanent, that it's almost like a computer short-circuiting.
Mind itself is not permanent. It is very momental. I don't know momental or permanent.
But he says these ideas that you're presenting, it's hard for the mind to know them.
Yeah, to know that when we know this apple, this is apple. That is, that's my dogmatism. Where is the apple? What is apple? Now, how do I grasp it? How do I understand it? I have no way to understand this is apple. That's sort of so. Because I see it, and I make, same types of images in my mind. Okay, when someone take this, out. But I have this memory of this apple. So, I know apple. But how that this is not apple, and not apple too. This is very difficult. This is not this is not apple. Okay, That is easy to understand. This is not apple.
I think maybe he means it's hard for the mind to grasp the concept of no concept,
A new concept is concept.
the concept of no concept.
Yeah,
Right.
not another concept. Yeah, well, I know apple, that I know, that I know, that I know. I have many eye, but all are, concept of apple.
He says he thinks it's hard for the mind to float between
Mhm.
positions,
Between what?
between positions,
Position.
positions, fixed points. It's like you're telling us not to grasp at any concept. He says it's hard to float without wanting to grasp onto
Concept
a
is, concept is not floating.
No, he's saying that it's hard to float, which is no concept.
No concept? When you have no concept, that you know nothing.
It's hard for the mind to float between positions.
Position of what? Position of what? That apple? You mean position of apple?
Saying it's hard to have no standpoint.
Oh, standpoint. That is position. I
Right.
fix the position.
Right.
I see. I see. Then
He's saying it's hard to have no standpoint. It's hard to float between standpoints. It's hard for him to give up all these concepts, in other words.
okay. Tell me, when you know this apple, you must make a picture of this apple in your mind. That is called the concept of this apple. Then that your concept it stay all the time in your mind. Okay, and it's forgetting. When you think of other things, this apple disappears. But when you remember it, when you need it, it's the image of apple appears, recollected. So that is, the mindfulness or recollection we call. So usually all memories are disappearance. No staying in our mind, because that is memory, nature of memory. When we need it, it appears suddenly. Human mind is very, very, interesting, very strange and powerful. Human mind is much, much powerful than any other, the modern, computer. Today's computer cannot, feel, color of this apple, or taste of this apple. Okay, please. Okay, please, everybody think of your, your topics. Okay?
He says that he understands what you're saying mentally, but he doesn't feel enlightened.
Yeah, because my talking is mine. You are talking, that's, how to say, interpret, by yourself. That is yours. Okay? My idea is not transmissible to any person, because world is different. My world is, My, you know, the realm of my world is my understanding.
So how can he prepare for instantaneous enlightenment?
Oh, that is, you know, each person has sudden enlightenment and instantaneous enlightenment. You know, that is own, you know, way of grasping.
So can you prepare for it? Can you make it happen?
Yeah, yeah. Each person has this kind of two types of understanding. In the sudden, gradual, you know, understanding, and also sudden, instantaneous understanding. Yeah. That is, everyone, every of you have own, you know, way of thinking or judgment. Yeah, but you know, you cannot borrow my understanding. Never. I cannot, you know, that conform, how to say, convert your mind. No. No. I cannot give you my idea. No. Okay, please. Anything, please? Okay. Okay, any other? How about Miss? Any?
Well, people were asking,
Mhm.
how can you create that happening?
Create
Or
happening.
How do you prepare for that or facilitate the awakening in your life? I don't think from what you said, that didn't clear it up for me.
I don't know. I'm talking just my way, you know, freely.
Mhm.
I have no preparation, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, so I don't know. This is my expression, you know.
Mhm.
So my idea, my talking, you know, you understand or not, that is your problem. Not my problem. Yes. Yes, sir? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
What is compassion?
Oh, compassion, in my idea, in my concept, yeah, that is, you know, that when we see others' happiness, we, you know, feel happiness. We feel happy. When we see others suffering, I feel suffering. That is my compassion.
What is selfless action?
Yeah. So that is, you know, my desire, my selfless desire.
A selfless desire?
Yeah. If I have self, you know, I cannot, you know, feel others' happiness, which is my happiness. You know, sometimes, most of the time, you know, that the others' happiness is very good for me. It gives me some good chance. That is human world, okay? In the human world, you know, that's you know, when I get good profit, you know, big profit, maybe some other person lost much. So I'm glad to other person lost, you know, their chance or profit. That is, you know, human. You know, that idea or human tendency. But you know, when you know other people are suffering, you know, I feel really I'm suffering. You know, I suffer. That is very difficult, very seldom. It is not so common. Yeah. We have many poor people living in all over the world. They have not enough food. But many people just did not see, do not see it. Just crossing line, keep out. Oh, that is their problem, not my problem. No. This is not Buddhism. Buddha always, that when you look or make a big eyes open, then see everything happening, every happening in the world, and think of that. And when you think of all people's, suffering, you suffer, you should suffer by yourself. When you see others' happiness, you should feel happy. That is the compassion. We have, of course, many and other explanations. It is not one. Compassion, I said compassion is selfless love. If you have no wisdom, you have no compassion. Because compassion and wisdom are the one thing. One thing, just like front and back. There is no wisdom without compassion. There is no compassion without wisdom. This is only, that's one thing. Therefore, that's we usually, purify our own mind and keep it in, pure. Otherwise, we cannot have compassion. If I think of myself first, I cannot think of others. I don't feel any sorry to the suffering people. Okay, any other question, please? Yeah, we have enough time. Yes, ma'am?
When you use the phrase selfless, what do you mean by that?
Okay, if you have a concrete self, you don't like to, forget self. But unfortunately, you have no self from the beginning. Do you have it? Self?
Well, I guess in reference to selfless service. I think you mentioned something about that, or someone did. But it seems to me like any kind of service that anybody does always fills something inside of them.
Yes, self is kind of illusion. Foolish people have a very big, strong self and love self first. That is a very bad illusion. That is why she has a big, ignorance, stupidity. So all this world is only one world. Who possesses it? You, yourself. No other person interfere into your world. Everybody is your concept. Everything is your concept. Therefore, happiness of others is my happiness, your happiness. There is no two person living in this universe, but the people do not know this very simple fact unless he knows, understands Buddhism. You know, in Buddhism, Buddha taught, you know, that you are the Buddha from the beginning. You have, you know, your is, you know, world. This world is not a common world. You know, wise man living and ignorant person living, I am living, they are living in the same world. No, no, no. This kind of, you know, the world is not real world. Yes.
He said, it seems that there is no self, and there is also no self.
That's right. So, what is that then? No self? No, no self? No, 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 no self? No, 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 no. That's a nechi, you know, 100 years, you know, 100 times. It's the same nechi, you know. So, what then? Okay, this is not a flower. Okay? This is not flower. Not, can you understand? Not flower? Yeah, this is such flower. You know, this is, we call it a flower. Of course, it is not a flower, but temporarily it is conditional flower. You know, it is not a flower, and not a flower. You know, that is also a human concept. Therefore, it is not a flower. You know, but it is not a flower. You know, for human concept is nothing, nowhere. Still, flower is flower. That is not flower, okay? Then we have 100 times, you know, not, you know, but still it is flower. You know? Human cannot negate anything, cannot affirm anything. Okay? Everything is always, you know, permanently is such. Okay? Such is beyond human understanding. You shouldn't, you know, judge, or you shouldn't negate or affirm anything. Everything is such. One word is such. Not necessarily nechi, you know. This, you know, all, you know, hundreds, thousands of nechi is in one word of such. This is such. This suchness is wonderful, pretty, you know, good, you know, permanent. It is beyond human, you know, understanding, beyond human discussion. That's why it is wonderful. It is so, you know, it's, you know, pretty, so good, so happy, so tranquil. This tranquility comes from that. Tranquility. Tranquility is when we think of something, you know, it is not tranquil anymore. That stop thinking, you know, and we see it just this one, you know, just as it is. Oh, it is how beautiful it is. That is everything, not only flower. When we see the person, oh, how wonderful he is, how wonderful she is. Now, I know she is nothing, he is nothing. But everything is so, just like a, you know, that this picture is good. Okay, that flower, this flower of lotus is the best or most beautiful flower among the flowers. You know, in the tropical countries in India, It's big like this. No? But the root is always in the deep mud. If mud is shallow, its root is very skinny. If mud is 10 foot, 20 foot, its root become bigger and bigger, and stem become longer and longer, and this leaves are like this, umbrella or parasol, and the bird become big like that. So flower become like this, 1 foot, square. So just like human nature, human nature is very, very avaricious, greedy. I know that. You know that. And very, very angry, very selfish, suspicious, and also very, that's how to say, conceited.
Why is human nature like that?
I don't know. It is such. We cannot explain it. We have so many causes. No? Buddha knows that, knew that. You see. So, this flower is a very strange flower. It starts from the mud and through the water and open in the air. It's very strange. Realm of desire, world of desire, world of matter, world of matter, world of spirit. In one plant is that grow in the three worlds, three kind of world. And not only that, this flower, when it opens, the seed is in it already. Seed and flower exist in one flower. Do you know any other flowers like this? This is the cause. Seed is the cause of the plants. Cause and effect are one. It's very strange. Our life is just like this. So, we have many, strong greed, anger, suspicion, and conceit, jealousy, and there's many, many other that defile the mind. But it is also, it is so pretty suchness. It is in the Buddha nature. All are Buddha nature. The birth and death is Buddha nature. And the suffering and happiness both are, the enlightenment. Evil and good both are enlightenment. Suspicion and wisdom are enlightenment. Anger and compassion are the enlightenment. Both are enlightenment. Human mind cannot understand that because mind itself is dualistic. Human mind is always dualistic. This and this, anger and compassion are opposite, against each other. When anger exists, no compassion. When compassion exists, there is no anger. No? That is a human understanding, a human judgment. This is a dualistic illusion. But when we know this relationship, when there is no this, there is no that. This and that are relative existence. When this is gone, that must be gone. When this exists, that exists. When this does not exist, that does not exist. That is relative, the dependency. When there is no compassion, there is no anger. There is no anger, there is no compassion. When there is no ignorance, there is no wisdom. When there is no wisdom, there is no ignorance. They are just like mother and the kids, baby. When there is no baby, there is no mother. When there is no mother, there is no baby. Baby cannot exist alone by itself. Mother cannot exist alone by itself, by herself. They are relative existence. Everything is like this. This is very good. So, in Ekayana Buddhism, we have this very profound sutra named Saddharma Pundalika Sutra. Saddharma is suchness, no? Suchness, true aspect of the beings, no? Because that is wonderful existence, no? Pure existence, no? Suchness existence. That is Saddharma. Pundalika is the simile of the suchness. No? It is flower, but it is a simile, the example. No? So this is like this flower. Saddharma is very, how to say, is metaphysical, it is idea. But this is a practical, example. So, Saddharma Pundalika. Yeah, we shall study someday in the near future about the Saddharma Pundalika Sutra. But we have not so many people understood more basic doctrine of the Buddhism. So we must go forward now. So someday we shall start Ekayana Buddhism. But in this condition, it is not still a little early, I think. So I like to explain you a little more about prajna, that is wisdom. So when you are quite free in prajna or prajna, you will understand the Ekayana, one word, one self. Even I explain to you, this is your word, not others' word. This is you. Only one Buddha, one word, one truth. That is Ekayana. If I say so, who understands that? It is very difficult. Yeah. So I wait, for a while until you will be free, your wisdom. That's, if I would say in the near future, you are dying now, you never feel fear. You are dead man. If I would say, you said, I know that. So, at that time, it is time to understand, the one world, one truth, one Buddha. Maybe sometime, because that is, Buddha's final teaching. Otherwise, you never be free from anything. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. We have 15 minutes more. So, do you have any other question? Okay. Yeah, you are enlightened right now. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we need a little more.